Morning, guys. This is Ken Ugert with the West Virginia Department of Education. This will be video 17, and it will be to show you how to add users and how to set their permissions to limit them in certain functions of the control system. It's kind of important that users have different the people that use your control system have different username and passwords for several reasons. One is the fact that this system keeps track of when you log on, when you log off, and all the activity that you do while you're on here. So if everyone uses the same username and password and something gets screwed up, or you just want to know who did what and when, all you're going to know is that somebody using this common username and password did it at a certain time. So you really can't tell who specifically did what. There are some list views just to show you what that does. Activity this month will tell you, this shows you, it keeps track of the most current to the least current. This shows you what happened from 12/23. Ken, that was me, and I logged on and I did something. Then there's some system activity. Then, of course, everybody at this site uses a common password, so there's no differentiation between who did what specific person will say. So in this instance, everybody uses this one password. So it's my opinion that you guys everybody should have their own username. I always put my unique one in there. That way I'm not getting blamed for something that was left disabled or changed to a set point that's abnormal. So that's what I want to show you, how to do that. So anyway, all the users for your system is located at the end of the tree right there. If you click that, it's going to show you who has access to this system. These are the different people that work in this space. To add a person is pretty simple. Do a right click in this area here on your mouse and do a new user, and put the name, the object name, which is going to be this right here, whoever you want. We'll put Fred. Make Fred and Barney users, because I need two people, just to show you the difference. You can put this in here if you want to. It's optional. No. Password you have to. We'll just keep Fred as your password, just so he has it. This is optional. Everything else here is optional. Nothing else is required for this to work. You don't have to have anything in full name, but you do have to have a password, and it is case sensitive. Okay? The next thing, so you're set up there with a person. And if you apply him, he goes there. Fred's now a user, but he doesn't have any type of permission to do anything yet. The security tab, really well, there's two things on here. The graphic. When Fred logs on, where do I want him to start? If Fred is only responsible for site A or site B, he doesn't really need to start at the global main screen. We can just put him straight into any specific graphic that you desire. So if I want him to go to a specific school's opening graphic, or any graphic for that matter, I want him to go to this school's front screen. If I would have chose, I can put any graphic in there that is on this system, and that can be, when he logs on, that's where he's going to go. This inactivity timer is kind of important. If Fred logs on and he just walks away from the screen, and walks away from the workstation, at 0 minutes means never log him off, even though there is no activity on the keyboard or anything. 0 minutes means do not log me off. If I put 15 minutes in here and apply, if after 15 minutes Fred stops doing stuff, he walks away from the keyboard, it will automatically log him off after 15 minutes. Or you can set this for any time you want to. But it kind of keeps, if you have a secure building and people tend to walk away without logging off manually, this is a good option that nobody can come back and sit down and resume where Fred was, what he was doing, or whatever he has permissions to do. So, I mean, there's some other things on here, but I've never used them, and some of you guys might have applications for that. I do not profess to be an expert on this particular subject for users and permissions, but the basics I know. And if you have any suggestions otherwise, please put them in the comments below. So there we got the general tab, set the password, security, set up the graphic where you want him to go to log on, and how long you want him to be able to be away from the computer before it logs him off. The next thing is the groups. Groups are typically where you have permissions. Group 1 is usually always the administrative group. I'll show you how to rename these here in a minute. But if you give Fred Group 1 and apply it, he now has permission to do anything on this system. He is an administrative level. He can program, he can configure points, delete points, anything that is possible he can do. And if Fred is qualified to do that, that is a fine option. If Fred is a button pushing idiot, you don't want to give that to him. You want to limit him to some degree to keep you safe, to keep the system safe. If he's a newbie, then you want to limit what he has access to and how much failure he can cause. And I'll show you how to do that. If I were to select another group, Typically, the groups aren't set up in our system, in the school systems in West Virginia. So I'm just showing you how you can do that. I guess you can give him more than one level access, like I said. Anyway, we'll leave Fred in group 1 for right now. I can figure out how to do that. Alright, there we go. Apply. So Fred is now at administrative level. Okay. Now let's create Barney. New user. Barney. Create. His password is going to be Barney as well. Typically you want these to be different, but just so I can remember them and delete them here in a minute. That's all I had to do for Barney to set him up. I created a password on that screen. On this screen, I'm going to tell him where he's going to log in. We'll say this guy is just responsible for another school, not the global school, not the global access to everything. Now he can go back and navigate to something else if he wants to, but we're just going to start him out here. We'll start him out at the high school screen, and we'll give him a activity of 5 minutes. If he walks away, he's probably not coming back. And we'll also give him a group level of 1 for right now. Okay, so I got two guys. If I log in, if I log off, now I'll log back in as Barney. B-E-R-N-E-Y, Barney. Should take me to the high school's opening screen, and it does. That's where I want him to go. Now from here he can go everywhere else the graphics will allow from this point. If I log off here and I'll log back on as Fred, I should go to a different front screen. I'm at another main screen for this school. So that's how you do that. Now if you have a particular screen that you want to go to all the time and you want to bypass all the little bells and whistles that's been set up, that graphic setup is where you would change that on the user, on your user, if you want to go somewhere else. Okay, so that's users, and like I say, these two guys are administrative levels now. Now to change their permissions of what they are allowed to do, you would go to down here where you would usually log on, log off. Actually, I have to log off. Well, let me show you what's happened here. Well, I do have administrative levels. Let me cancel this because I want to change these guys to less of a permissions, and I'll log on as me. Okay. See, I have an opening screen of the entire school, so I go to a different screen. Now to change the user permissions, you go here to this where you usually log on, log off. Go up here to security. here's all the things that you can control with security levels. Alright? The next tab is that same tab, group 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And you can change those. You can change the names of those. If group 1 and 2 doesn't make sense to you, change it. We'll make this one, we'll rename this one. Double click on it. That's the administrator group, okay? Oh, don't click OK. Alright, first group is administrator. Second group will be, we'll call that engineers. Third group we'll call something else. Just double click. Whatever makes sense to you, whatever your levels of that you're going to have. So that's what we're going to have. We're going to have administrators and engineers, security guys, HVAC guys, and newbies. And apply. So now, if I were to go back over here to the users, and I wanted to edit what Barney can do, I want to place him in a different group. I spelled that wrong. But anyway, here are those same names, what we just renamed. Okay? But we haven't changed what the permissions are yet. So go back to this and go back to security. Is it? There it is. Alright, so this is just changing the names of it. You have 128 divisions of this. If you can get down to nuts and bolts of a lot of things if you've got a lot of personnel that you want to have a lot of variety of access levels. The actions. This is where you set the permissions. This first stuff is BACnet stuff. And if you want them to be able to change BACnet points, analog points, analog alarm enrollments, this is where you do it. I'm going to take you down to the stuff I know, which is going to be classes. Let's see. Go back up. Go back up. Classes. Alright, here we are. We're into classes. I want to do, say I want to change what these guys can do for the inputs. If I click on the inputs, it opens up this whole group of things. And there's 128 of them representing all those groups. If you hover over one, it's group 127, group 128. So those represent 128 groups. This first thing is for administrators. If you hover over that, that should be for the administrators. This is the group name. The second one is the one we called engineers. See the engineers? And the third one is for security guys. The fourth one is for HVAC guys. Then we got the fifth one is newbies. So this key says, hey, you are allowed to do this. This person in this group, which they're vertical. Everybody in this group, administrator, has a right to change it out of service, change the value, create or delete or edit or send a text file, or all these things that are listed here. So the permissions have been given because it is a key. These are called padlocks. These are padlocked. They will not allow you to do it. Right now, the guys and engineers cannot change it out of state. They cannot change a value. They cannot do any of this. It's defaulted that way. If you want to allow them to do these things, just click on these and it changes to a key. Changes to a key. You'd have to select each thing you want to allow them to do. Security guys, maybe you don't want the security guys to do anything with the inputs. Maybe you want to limit them to only security functions, changing people and doing things related to that. Again, I'm not an expert on what security guys do and what their functions are in this system. But if you are, this is how you would limit what they can do. Now this only pertains to Infinity inputs. So this right now, they could go in and they can change any input on the control system. The security guys could not. The HVAC guys right now, I don't know why that's checked, but the only thing they could do right now is view an input. I don't know really how that works, but that's what they could. I guess it's if you're in Explorer mode, that limits you to that. So you would, you would modify these things. So you got inputs, you got outputs. If you want these guys to do this stuff, select this. Maybe you don't want them to be able to change a value. Maybe you just want them to be able to view it. And if you do that, and when they log on, these permissions become active, and they are only allowed to do the things that these keys are in front of. So if you add a person and they cannot do all the things that they need to do, you need to go back and check the permissions under each of these classes of things. They can, do you want them to be able to create and edit programs? If you do, if you want them to edit a program, allow them to do that. If you want them to run programs, allow them to do that. If you just want the beginner guys to be able to view it, that would allow them to view the program but not change anything. I don't know what all these things really relate to. I'm sure they do something. But if you are knowledgeable enough about this system to be doing this, you probably know more about it than what I do. But this is how if you have a security guy, you want him to be able to do all this stuff with the personnel. You want to be able to clear badges and such. But you don't want the engineers or the newbies to be able to change that. Maybe you don't want the administrators to be able to do that. If you don't want them to do something, click on that key and it'll turn to a lock, a lost signal. Okay, see if that works or not. But anyway, now that we're back, you change what they are allowed to do with these locks or not. If you don't want them to be able to do that, click on the key and it turns back to a key or a lock. It just toggles back and forth. So basically that is it. Play with that. That's probably the key with it, because I've done it and thought I had it right, and some things I did not get right. Graphics, let's see, there's a graphics down here somewhere. If you got people that change your graphics, do you want them to be able to change, edit, and do things to your graphics or not? If so, allow them to do it. And if you don't, if you just want them to view it for newbies, you say apply. Or you just do those, and when you're done, push apply. Okay. Well, I think I am logged on. Now, when you go back to Fred and Barney, if Barney is a new person that you don't have much, don't think he needs to be doing all these crazy things, select the newbies or whatever group you want him to be, apply. Now he is limited to everything, only the things that have that key next to them. If I go to Fred and edit Fred, he's a little more savvy on this stuff. We'll give him the HVAC option. Once he becomes better, you can move him up to engineer or administrator. And if you have all those groups selected that he should do, you know, like I say, you could have multiple groups in there. Administrator kind of takes over all those functions, allows him to do anything. So if you want to not allow him to do that, you have to uncheck the administrator, because it covers everything. But now he has the ability to do anything the engineers are allowed to do, anything the HVAC guys are allowed to do. And if he becomes your security guy, you can check that as well. Or if he goes to the security office and is only a security officer, you can take him out of the other stuff so he cannot mess with the HVAC stuff. If you've selected all the right options. So again, play with that stuff. It is kind of trial and error. Set up a person, log on, set him up as you think he should work, go through those selections and try them. If he can get the things that you don't think he should get to, then you've got some things checked that you probably shouldn't have checked. But you can customize all these groups for different applications and access levels, permission levels. So that's my advice to you if you're going to use this. But I would advise that every one of your staff have a different username and logon, even if it's administrator. When I spell it right, that'll look better. But at least you will know by going back in the history to say that Fred did this or Barney did this. If everybody uses a common username and password, you don't really know which specific employee did what at what time. Alright? So that's the basics of it. Okay, if you got any questions, let me know. Again, this is Ken Ugert with the West Virginia Department of Education. This is video 17. Thank you.